Hey, Mike, can you call roll, please, again?
All right. Mr. Benford? Ms. Hope?
Here.
Ms. Hollingworth?
Here.
Ms. Paoli?
Yeah, here.
Mr. Sangillo? Mr. Seidel?
Here.
Vice President Hogarth?
Here.
President Cricket?
Here. Okay, welcome everyone. It's so great to see our youngest constituents here. Thank you for coming out. You get to see the exciting world of board meetings. So welcome. We're going to start with, do we have student accommodations?
No, the high school has their spirit week, their Friday night day,
Okay.
so there's none of those.
None of that. Oh, yeah. Okay. They've got better things to do.
Yes.
Okay, then we'll start with presentations of the performing arts.
And so we're fortunate today. We're going to be doing this now for a while. Miss Mary has her elementary choir. They're going to perform for us, and then we're going to hear about the high school band, the middle school drama club, and the high school drama club. But this is going to be something we're going to institute now, trying to get our performance groups to come and open up our board meetings with songs, with performances, to really let this shine, because they do a lot of hard work. They do an excellent job, and I think we need to honor their joy they have in this. And that's one thing, because well, it's be hard to see with the mask, but one of the things you always notice when you watch our performance groups is how much they enjoy doing it, how much it really touches them and makes them happy. So this is Miss Mary Bush. I'm sure she gets them all up here. She'll give us a little introduction.
What a wonderful way to start.
Yeah, well, this is going to be great. Yes. I have the auditorium.
Yeah.
Okay, this is our first time we've sung in public in 2 years, isn't it? It's been a long time, so we're so excited to sing a song for you. It's called Peaceful.
Think of the world with
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, guys.
My husband's in New York for work, and my children are
Thanks, Justin.
I know. Thank you, Ms. Brandon. Wonderful song selection, too. That was perfect. Thank you. And now Mr. Janney is going to talk about our high school band.
Good evening, everyone. As soon as I come up to the mic, everyone leaves.
It's not you.
I hope not. That's a little bit, yeah. I'll be brief. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to allow me to come and talk tonight. I did not bring my students with me, as Mr. Klaus had pointed out. They are having a Fright Night dance. The marching band students are very busy this time of year. They were competing on Sunday. They're in tomorrow night and Saturday, and I wanted them to have a night just to have some fun and do a dance. But just a little bit about the, first of all, the marching band program. We continue to work within many of the precautions and challenges that we have during the pandemic, and this started last year. Last year, the students came to me before the shutdown and designed a show called Peril at Sea. They chose the music, they chose the theme, and then everything shut down. And by early summer, the leagues had decided that marching band would not actually happen. Nonetheless, we were one of the only bands in the South Jersey area that actually produced an entire show. And I was very proud of my students for that. And we looked to 2021 knowing that we would be non-COVID and everything would be completely back to normal. And as we know from Gino's daily emails, that certainly is not the case. But we continue to strive towards that, and we are working under, for the most part, a normal schedule following these precautions. This year's show is entitled Mangione Magic. It's based on the music of jazz musician Chuck Mangione. Again, this is a student-chosen theme. One of the things I do is I try to include the students as much as possible within the design process. And we have been going to competitions, football games, and the like ever since the very beginning of September. A little bit of where we're at this year. Last week, we placed, the high school marching band placed 4th out of 11 in all of South Jersey. And they got their highest championship score since 2014, which I thought was pretty exciting. This Saturday, we will compete at NJ States at Cherokee High School. Thus far, the Haddonfield Marching Band is ranked 13th out of 44 in Tournament of Bands Group 1A Atlantic Coast Division, which is a nice placement given where we are. My goal as director is to continue to help my students, of course, to work hard, to improve, and to achieve. And I also look to help them enjoy the marching arts and take in the aesthetic qualities as well. Marching band, like many sports and clubs and activities, is more than just a group of people who come together. We are indeed a family. Parents get to know each other, and students forge friendships that will last a lifetime. As most of you know, this is not a one-man show, and I know that's true of many activities, not all. I want to say how appreciative I am of the students' hard work and dedication. Without that, the program simply would not exist. These students come in early July to begin working on all of this stuff. In fact, they will probably be hounding me. The competition season ends on Saturday. Marching band might end Thanksgiving Day unless the football team plays into December. And I have my turtlenecks all washed and ready to go for that. But I guarantee in January, they're going to be coming to me saying, let's meet and get ready for next year. And this is really exciting. In addition to that, so many parents have been so supportive and giving of their time, chaperoning band camp, competitions, making snacks for football games and the like, as well as raising money. It could not happen without all of them. My wonderful staff and the many hours that they give in support of our program. And of course, the administration at both the high school and district level in helping us not just to fund the program, but for the program to exist. If you think of something that we have a big shortage of today, it is bus drivers. And yet, Lefty has yet to tell me that he would not find a bus for me. And just the other week, a competition was canceled on Saturday and postponed to Monday. And I said, I know this is completely the 11th hour, and I will understand if this cannot happen. But if you could possibly find me a bus Monday at 3 o'clock so that we could possibly do this. And it was at that football game. He holds up his phone and he says, I got you a bus. So off we go. So I just want everybody to know how appreciative we are. In addition to that, we have the concert band program, which is off and running. We have a decent schedule in that we can rehearse as a full ensemble during the day, which is so helpful for us. And we'll be performing not only at the winter concert on the 21st of December, but of course the spring concert. We'll be performing at the Memorial Assembly the Friday before Memorial Day. And of course, you'll see us at graduation. So these are some of the things that are happening with the band program. Mr. Heck will be starting the jazz band program in January. And we are alive and kicking, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I know you have to get the whole concert band up here because of the instruments, but maybe we can get, an ensemble up here to perform as one.
Let's do it.
All right, thank you.
I would love to know who plays the flugelhorn if you're doing the music of Chuck Mangione.
I don't have any flugelhorn players, but I have some trumpet players.
Okay.
We just tell them they're playing flugelhorn.
Ms. Izzo is now going to talk about middle school drama, which is coming up on the 19th, I believe, of November, correct? Yes.
So I'm gonna improvise, that's what drama people do, since I left my notes at school. So middle school drama club, some of you have had your sons and daughters in the middle school shows. It's a club that's been around, it predates me, but the entire time I've been at Haddonfield Middle School, I've been part of the middle school drama club. We produce 2 shows a year, fall play and the spring musical, although we haven't produced anything in the fall since 2019. We haven't produced a musical since 2018. And we're hoping to produce something this year. Half my cast is virtual, so we had a rehearsal today with someone on the computer. It's been amazing. So I'm a little bit, we're just in a rebuild right now because hardly any students that have been in drama club at the middle school because of the pandemic. Like we have a couple 7th graders that were in it last year. But middle school drama club, like Mr. Danny said, like serves a huge purpose at our school, I think. And I think over the years, it served anywhere from 40 students to 80 students. It's a club that 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders can participate in multiple times throughout the year. It gives them, they are like truly a family unit. Theater allows for a lot of outlets. It allows for creativity. It allows for them to get to see different perspectives on the world by getting into someone else's shoes and becoming a different character. It also gives them a chance to sing and dance. I was sad that Mrs. Murray laughed because I was like, please, come to middle school and sing. We will be hopefully doing Annie Junior in the spring this year. So yeah, we're struggling right now, but we're coming back strong. I feel that the program, there's so many kids interested in it. And one other thing I did also want to say that the middle school drama club is very student centered in that they're involved in a lot of the design process and what does the set look like. They paint everything. Our crew director, they design everything. They design the programs and they design the backdrops, the lighting. They have input into how we want to stage things, how we want to block things. And also in the past, in 2018 and 19, we did 2 shows that were one was written almost entirely by rising 8th to 9th graders. And then the one before that, all of them had individual original pieces by Haddonfield students within the shows that we did in 2018 and 2019. So we're hoping to get back to that. Please come see our show if it gets off the ground on the 18th and the 19th. They are working extraordinarily hard. We have the leads filling in for the ensemble while they're at home. They're saying their lines via computer. So anyway, I can say enough about the importance of the arts at Haddonfield and the things that it's done for our students and former students still come back and talk about drama club both at the high school and at the middle school. And so thank you so much for
And
supporting it.
the fall show is,
It's A Wrinkle in Time, which I would like to be able to wrinkle back to pre, or wrinkle forward to after the quarantining ends, because it's been challenging. But I mean, they've also I've had the best projectors I've ever had in my entire life. Like, they can project really far through the mask, so when they're in my class and I can't hear them, I'm like, wait, I can hear you at the back of the stage with the mask on, so you must be able to say something. Yeah, they've been really great, they've been really flexible, they've been drama students, that's how drama students have been all of the time, but I think in this situation, really, they've gone above and beyond. We did a show last year, which we weren't planning to do a show. Like our spring musical, we were in 2020, we were supposed to go off in early April, and March, 15th, we shut down. So that show was like devastating. Those kids were devastated, the sophomores. And last year they were like, oh, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And when I heard the high school was doing a show, I went down to Ms. Smith's office and I was like, what? The high school's doing a show. We have to. And so we did like this little scenes from a quarantine show, and it was really great. Like we did it only for their parents, and live streamed it, but they were just so happy to be on the stage together with each other. So I can't say enough good things about the arts again in Haddonfield, and I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop talking right now and go home. So thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Donato, I think you're here with some assistance to help you get this.
Hi everyone, I'm Matthew Donato. I direct the drama program at the high school, both the in-school theater program and the after-school program. And I have two students today who are going to explain to you a little bit about our program and the impact it's had on them. So this is Ann Haas and Mary Claire Michael, both seniors, and they can take the floor from here.
Hi, I'm Ann. I'm the stage manager for the HMHS Drama Club Productions. So I attend all the rehearsals, take notes, call cues during the show, organize the crew leaders, do all the things. So obviously Drama Club is a huge part of my life, so I'm just really excited to talk to you about it tonight. So the Drama Club at the high school is the largest extracurricular performing arts program at the school. There were 56 students involved with our fall play, and we expect that there'll be between 80 and 90 students involved with the musical. And the Drama Club at the high school is also extremely student-driven. So obviously students are on the stage, but students also run the lighting and soundboards, help pick out and design the costumes, do the hair and the makeup for the actors, paint and build the sets, help design the props. Like in every aspect of the show, students are involved and making decisions. So this also just means that there's a very diverse ways that students can be involved, because you can learn not only performance skills, but creative and technical skills as well. So we rehearse 6 days a week, so every day after school, as well as Saturdays during the musical. And during show seasons, there's set building 7 to 20 hours a week to get the sets up on stage and ready for opening night. Every year we have 3 fall play performances and 5 musical performances, as well as a Bulldogs on Broadway showcase. We are a very active club. In addition to the drama club, we have the newly reinstated Troop 4789, which are our thespian troop at the school. And there are more than 20 students at the high school recognized for their outstanding achievement in theater and theatrical arts by the International Thespian Society. So I'd like to introduce Mary Claire, our thespian president.
Hello, so my name is Mary Claire Michael, and as Ann said, I'm the current president of our thespian troupe. So I'm here just to speak about my personal experience of growth and development under the drama club. So doing theater at the high school has single-handedly allowed me to grow my confidence and develop values of self-discipline, empathy, and teamwork, all of which have transferred to academic success. The auditorium provides a safe space for many students, myself included, to be themselves and just be free. And participation in the drama club provides students with many practical skills. Every student learns to paint and use tools, and some learn specialized skills like lighting, design, and sewing. However, theater also helps students develop their inner skills that allow them to grow into emotionally intelligent and kind individuals. Every show, Mr. DiDonato does a fantastic job of connecting the work we're doing to larger themes in our lives. So Hello Dolly taught us about vulnerability. Gypsy taught us about dealing with parental pressures. And for those of you who saw our fall play, The Book of Everything, the show dealt with a lot of heavy concepts, but relevant themes to our lives, and all of which were addressed and discussed in rehearsal. The drama club allows students to let loose, to sing and dance, and to have fun, but it also teaches us to be vulnerable, to treat others with respect, and to deal with the heavy emotions that can often plague us. In fact, the drama club allows students to practice the skills of social emotional learning that are stressed so heavily by the district. The wonderful educators who lead the productions have empowered me and my peers and created a safe environment where students don't necessarily let go of the stresses of their life, but rather learn to heal from them in a fun, positive way. So just thank you so much for your time and for highlighting this wonderful extracurricular that means so much to me and so many other students. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
for
O.
coming out. Okay, we're gonna next have Susan Kuttner report on our long-range facility plan. She missed us so much. She's back already.
It's much more fun coming back as a guest.
I think I'm home earlier.
Yep.
Sit on the end.
Sure.
She's getting ready. This is, the presentation has like a lot of little data in it. It might be better to log in and to see it from your screens instead of over there.
Do we have it? Is it your
Attached? Wasn't earlier.
No, it's not attached. We'll get it to, Susan will get it.
You can search for it though in the documents if you give us the name.
It's
probably not, I'm sorry, I was like editing it at the last minute.
The YouTube channel is probably the easiest way if you want to.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Oh,
The safest for the microphones here.
Okay, so a lot of you have seen some of it. I don't think anyone here has seen all of it. And it is a fair amount to cover. So one of the reasons I just wanted to sit down, so I wanted to be a little bit of a conversation too, so that I'm going to try and keep it high level so that we're not here until 11 o'clock tonight. So I think it's best if you want more detail or information about something, just stop and ask me about it. What I want to cover tonight is just like where you are with the long-range facility plan, the status of it. And it's hard to believe now that we've been presenting pieces of this since like 2019. So just to recap where we are, and then the newer things, and the facility committee saw this. This is also what was supposed to be discussed at our board retreat that we never got to, but taking a look at Cooley Hall, the grade alignment, school sending area considerations, and option exploration, and the next steps to see that whether you want to move forward or not. So here's the various pieces of the long-range plan. The first one in yellow, what I call the yardstick, the objectives and evaluative criteria. The enrollments, I did the first study actually in 2018, updated it in 2019. So another update is needed that I'll do is we use the ASSA, the fall enrollment reports, to update it so it's verified data. So those will be ready soon. We'll update it yet again, but I don't think anything major is going to change, and I'll get into that in more detail. And then there was a presentation on programs and vision for the district and showing what other districts offer in terms of facilities, which is really important because most people aren't anything other than Haddonfield schools, and it really is a whole different world out there. So the deficiency assessment, we also we completed all the components of it that last January, or the January before the pandemic hit, the capacity and educational adequacy analysis. Before that, we did the school security, and just recently Mike presented the physical plant findings. And that brings us to the option exploration. Most of the things that we'll talk about tonight and set the stage, that's the point. Once you decide you want to move forward or have a general framework, that you hire a referendum architect to form the capital plan. So as we talked about earlier, I can guide you through the option exploration steps. And I have to say, it's easier just sitting here as an architect and school facilities expert and not as a board member. I don't think I have to measure my words quite as carefully because there's no swaying. But just first to start the recap with the enrollments and the capacity and educational adequacy analysis. And I think it was everyone here saw this slide, and I can't stress enough, Haddonfield through the years, and even well before I became a board member, especially really obsessed about enrollments and getting it down to a T. And I have to say, I read with dismay some of the projections about what could happen in Bancroft and affordable housing. And the reality is, there's a good chance it just really doesn't matter, because you can't look at enrollment projections in isolation. It really is where your facilities are right now. And it could be inconsequential, or one student might be consequential, and talking about them in a vacuum. And that's the whole point of understanding enrollments and capacity, how they interact and also impact educational adequacy. And, to put in context, I always tell people, say 120 student increase. It sounds like a whole lot. You're dividing it among 12 grades. Are you dividing it among 3 schools? Are you dividing it among 3 class sections? It might be nothing. If your class sizes are already above what you want them to be, it could be everything. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, and it's really not as critical and not as weighty as people make it to be. And the other thing that people don't realize, what's the capacity of the schools? It's not a fixed number. It's going to change year to year, because your existing capacity is going to be what you need to fit the kids. I mean, you're going to compromise things to get there. And, you certainly all know that you increase the capacity to accommodate growing enrollments. Haddonfield has done all of these. You have larger class sizes. You manage your school sending areas so every seat can be filled. You increase room utilization rates. In the high school, you have a lot of floating teachers, and you reassign spaces that don't contribute capacity, like the infamous art on the park in elementary schools. You make the kids fit. The capacity will never be fixed. The capacity of the high school probably right now is higher than what it would have been 4 years ago if I calculated it. And then likewise, you'll hear the public say, we used to fit 200 more kids in this building, and you're saying they don't fit now. And that's right, because you adjust how you use the building to accommodate new programs and objectives. Use class size reduction initiatives, special ed programs and mandates. The hot topic right now, full day preschool and kindergarten. And then just, obviously you deliver education very differently than you did when all of the buildings were built. So to understand that, capacity is a moving target. And just quickly to understand that, this is a really significant issue. Like when you plan a school and you sit down and you have your number, this gives you a scenario, like say 21 students target per class, and then you want to have, for example, I couldn't hear, a STEM lab. So ideally you're opening the doors, your capacity of the school is 168 students. But then your enrollment growth, so you're like, all right, we're going to raise our class size policy to 25. We're still keeping our STEM lab. Now 200 students are in the building. That's the capacity of the building. Then you become overcrowded. You take away the STEM lab, make it a general classroom so that you have 9 classrooms, and your capacity of the building is 225. This is the same building. The capacity ranged from 168 to 225, depending on how you use it. So the reason I discuss this is that you can only determine the capacity right now on how you're using the buildings with all of their flaws. So again, you take that with a grain of salt. So getting into the specifics, in November 2019, the recommendations were to plan for 2,783 students roughly. And in there was 35 students from affordable housing that we took as standard means of projecting student enrollments. And it's actually pretty, adding students for affordable housing is one of the less crystal ball-y things that you'll do, because affordable housing is based, the agreements are based on bedrooms and occupants, so it's pretty easy to project that. Nothing was put in here for Bancroft because it's still so up in the air about it. The other mitigating thing that we talked about at the time is Haddonfield had tremendous housing turnover. The real estate sales were really increased at that time. So there was a lot of housing turnover and new children that probably wouldn't continue on the same rates that was being projected. So Bancroft probably would infill some of that a little bit, but because of the uncertainty, didn't put it in there. The key things for the recommendations was there was the target number, about 2,800 students, but also to incorporate DOE prescribed capacity utilization factors. That they're saying when you plan, you're not planning for 100% capacity utilization, that they give you utilization rates ranging from 85% to 90% to give you the flexibility. So your target is much broader. And it's important that when you start and get into the planning process, that you reset the school building capacities to be ideal and not how they're being used now. The nice thing about having so much time pass since we started is we can see how we do. So the first line are this year's enrollments unofficially until the state report's available. And then in the gray, you see the projection, and that's pretty close. I mean, that's really a negligible difference. Then when I talked about applying the DOE prescribed capacity utilization rates to that when you start looking at what the maximum capacity of the buildings would be, if you use this base enrollments, you see that it goes from accommodating 2,037, which was the projection, 2,783, that when you put in proper room utilization, capacity utilization rates, you'll be accommodating over 3,100 students, which gives you a cushion of 319. And this gets back to why I said that you don't stress out over and argue whether it's 50 kids, like more or less, that are coming or not. And to put that in context, I've seen numbers like generating from the Bancroft, depending on what side of the fence that you're on. We've seen numbers saying, low 30s, we've seen ones 100. Well, if you've properly planned your buildings and they have the flexibility, it's inconsequential. And that's the point of this, to show that the range of this.
But aren't there like assumptions that are built into that? Like, isn't it a zero-sum game most of the time in that, like, sure, if it's 50 more kids, it results in, I don't know, on average, let's say for a particular school, 2 or 3 more kids for one particular grade. You might say, no big deal, but I feel like most Haddonfield parents would say, I don't want it to be 3 more kids in the class. I feel like, regardless of what studies are out there in terms of class sizes, whatever, most parents would probably react, I don't want that to happen. I don't want to give up my STEM lab. And so maybe there are some places where there's space that's just not being utilized, and you know what, it really isn't a zero-sum game.
And I'll get to that.
But most people would say, I don't want to give up the STEM lab. I'm fine, using some space that's not being used in storage. That's fine, then I don't care. But I think most people will care.
Right, and the problem is we've already given up. In most cases, you'll see that we have given up the STEM lab. The important consideration to see here that is when you're planning an educational program for your schools, you're going to start in the ideal. The ideal world, and what DOE will approve, has utilization rates in it. So when our schools currently are well above these utilization rates, when you apply them though, and we provide them in the buildings, that's the key, is provide them, you'll see that we have a cushion that we could accommodate in the ideal world 3,100. This is not what our buildings are now. This is to show that the 2,800 student number is a good planning number because it's flexible enough to accommodate whatever might be happening in Haddonfield. It doesn't, our buildings certainly are not there providing it right now. And that's what I'm going to get into right now, is that when a building first opens and it's planned and shiny new, that you have this capacity range, and you're there in the middle, that you can grow if you have new students. If you're a little bit less, don't have surplus capacity. And so the question is, where are we? And unfortunately, we're past right now that because of growing enrollments and programs, all of those buildings are either overcrowded or they have compromised educational adequacy. So the town really needs to reset and to get that back to the middle to provide the flexibility. And I don't need, the reality too is, you have the capacity issue, and we all understand that we have old buildings and they've been updated and upgraded through the years, but the fundamental structure of them are the days when it was bells and cells. And that's what they are. When you look at it, that what was happening educationally, that our oldest building was built at the time of Woodrow Wilson. Our most recent, which is the middle school building, is Lyndon Johnson. So when you think about that, you have no core buildings that have been built, since the space program started. I mean, that's really like what you're looking at. And I mean, that's a fundamental issue on program delivery and facilities costs. So we went through this in detail and there's lists, but the district-wide issues of things that to be addressed is that the district, obviously, as any district would do, you prioritize capacity over program accommodations because you need to set each student. Piecemeal educational upgrades, doing what you can when money's available. Dated furniture not designed for current programs or not suited for the classroom sizes. We have quite a few undersized classrooms. And I know that the district is working towards replacing that out of the operating budget and updating it. Missing or outdated specialized learning spaces, inadequate small group instruction and collaboration spaces, no toilet rooms on select classroom floors and non-code compliant classroom toilet rooms, minimal accommodations for administration and student services, and storage is a problem at the classroom, building, and district level. Giving you a quick overview of the schools, and I think it's like this slide here, it's just informational that talks about like what is in each building, but it's good to see them side by side to understand that Central this year has the most enrollments at 446, then Tatum at 414, and then Elizabeth Haddon at 374. The construction years, I mean, you can just see that Haddonfield is added to buildings as needed, and that the opportunity to expand square footage, especially at Haddon and Central, it is little to zero. We'd have to do site analysis. Something might be possible at Haddon, likely nothing at Central. And that has an impact on the building. You see the total gross square foot, that's everything in between the outside walls. The net square feet takes away mechanical spaces, corridors, stairwells, circulation, things that you don't use for a function. And you can see the reduction in the square footage, how it really comes down. I have to say, Tatum has the most stairwells I've ever seen in a building of that size. So, it just shows you the inefficiencies as buildings have been added on over the year. And again, there's operational costs of those efficiencies as well as educational. So looking at, as I said before, existing capacity. Now, this was done in 2019. I suspect it's different now. I think there's at least one less section at Tatum. That's when we had the blip going through. But the critical thing to look at as things stood then, that the number of specialized classrooms, you can see that there's a lack of parity among the schools. Central had 3, Haddon 2, Tatum 4. So looking at the capacity capability based on how it's used, knowing that these are imperfect in their program accommodations, that Haddon doesn't have a music room, that Tatum has 2, compared to Haddon 2 extra spaces. None of them have appropriate small group rooms or student services spaces, but looking at it, if you looked at it from the DOE perspective, the facilities efficiency standard is the DOE yardstick. It advocates 21 per class in grades K to 3, and then 23 in grades 4 to 5, and a 90% utilization. Based on that, the buildings have a capacity of 1,019 students. Again, accepting educational inadequacies. How we schedule a building is that ideally we want to cap each classroom at 25, and we manage our sending areas, and we do achieve, you'll see, almost 100% utilization, that we can put 1,486 in our elementary school. So you see the range right there from what I would call the DOE 1,000, which is ideal. This is just playing with class sizes and utilization, to we're close to 1,500. So comparing that, going back to the enrollment projection, and it's at the elementary, we've had consistent growth over the last few years. To be honest, I didn't look at last year. The pandemic enrollments across the state had declining enrollments in grades pre-K to 2. because of homeschooling and going with other options. So they're kind of anomalies, so I didn't look at those. But looking at this year, the critical thing to see in the schools, we use how the DOE criteria, like in the capacity status, you can see that we're short 223 seats. That when we do our district practices of class sizes and filling most of the holes that we have around the district, that we have some flexibility of 96. Obviously, this is not a situation you will want to carry forward in the future. I mean, it's really rough living September to September and figuring it out. I mean, we've all sat here, it's not just another teacher, it's another classroom. So this shows you that our existing buildings right now are really stressed for the students in them. And how you can see it is if you look at the gross square foot per student, that when you have a low gross square foot per student, obviously you prioritize capacity above educational adequacy. So in this table here, the red bar is the facility efficiency standards. It's 125 square foot per school, and that's really a funding formula by the state. And as a funding formula, you know that this is low. This is not in reality what's being built. I think the national average for elementary schools, the last time I saw it was around 135. I think it's in the 150s for the tri-state area. So that's a really low number. Looking at Tatum provides just 109.53 square foot per student, Haddon 107.17, the least square foot per student, and Central a little more than 114. Our average is only 110. So the good news on this is that we would be eligible for state funding because we're below what the state thinks we should provide in square footage. And I went for published data and I looked at the closest district that I thought was similar to Haddonfield. Looking at Morristown, no, they provide 139 square foot per student. So Haddonfield's elementary schools are small. They're really classrooms and multi-purpose rooms. Moving on to the middle school, which is our new school in the district, built in 62 and expanded in 2003. It's much of the same issues. Here's the capacity and enrollment analysis on one page. In middle school, you could really move the capacity depending on how you schedule it. And I know that the school for years was a team organization, which means that only certain classrooms contribute capacity. And it's moved to more of a departmentalized organization like a high school, which you can put a lot more students in the building with smaller class sizes because teachers all don't have dedicated classrooms. The important thing to see in here is what's highlighted in red, that all these students in the elementary schools in the next 5 years obviously are going to make it to the middle school, and the enrollments are going to continue to go up. And even with a departmentalized organization with teachers moving and sharing classrooms, there's still going to be a small capacity deficiency. So the middle school right now probably is the biggest issue for trying to keep class sizes down as the kids come up from elementary school. And obviously, no surprise that the state funds 134 square foot per student. We're at 124.7. Morristown provides over 140. So again, the middle school, similar problems to the elementary, but I think more issues with class sizes. And finally, the high school building has the 3 wings and the rebuilt B wing in our last referendum. And the high school, from a capacity point of view, because high school has the most flexibility. Everyone's moving, you can change and schedule rooms to contribute capacity. So from a capacity point of view, the high school is in okay shape. You can see though that if you take how it's used right now, it is at 85% utilization based on 25 per class. And you know that when you offer the depth of electives that Haddonfield offers, you're not getting 25 in a class. So, study halls and things like that with more kids make up for that. But it's showing here that you're going to be losing program flexibility in what you can offer if it has a class size under a certain number of students. And I don't know if that's changed, whether the policy that you don't offer a class unless it has a certain enrollment in it.
We still keep that, but multiple calculus, it's gonna be 7 or 8, right? We're not gonna
Yeah.
drop that class.
Right, but the other electives.
Other electives, we try to keep them down. Although that being said, Susan, sometimes we'll say, this is a course we feel is really important to have offered, and we let it grow a little bit, so.
So the important thing is the facilities support that right now. You don't want to be to a point where they.
We have to, the classroom said we can't do it because we don't have a classroom.
Right, and I can tell you that study hall saves the high school in a lot of way, it frees up, as I said, because you're not going to get 25 in every class. And in the high school, even though the capacity isn't the major issue here, the school is really outdated in the quality and size of its spaces. And I really, of all the things I think would be worthwhile to look at a newer high school and to understand like the difference in what other districts provide. Our high school is at 173 square foot per student. Morristown High School is 227. I know that Princeton is over 300. Our high school is tight. The A wing has really small classrooms in that. I mean, we don't really have the same tech spaces that other schools have too. So there's also some district functions in the high school too that would be well served if you could get, relocate them out of this building and get the space back to the high school. So quickly for the school security that we went through this, and the district has made huge strides on it. It was spearheaded by Sandy and the community group. And this was the remaining in 2019. Some of this might have been done. I know that most of the objectives, the key objectives have been addressed, but if everything was to be done, it's about 4.5 million. But I imagine you've probably chipped into this a little more. I also think these estimates were a little bit high because they were priced individually. I think the work has come in much lower than that. And then physical plan. When we came up with the scope for the last referendum, we try our best to look at it, the district more holistically, like the buildings were literally falling down on the exterior. So we did identify 70 million and more capital improvements. They were, in the end, were whittled down to about 35 million. So we know that list is out there. Again, you've done some of these, a lot of these in the last few years, the HVAC, some additional roofs. So that number has been chipped in, but it's out there, and we know that it is. One of the big things was work in the A wing that was taken out, knowing that you probably want to look at that more educationally before you move forward. And then the presentation that was done a few months ago, really honing in on the next 5 years, there was 16.3 million identified. Whether this becomes part of a referendum or continues out of the operating budget is a decision. But these are I think these were, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these are the critical things that have to be done just to keep the buildings operational. So that's the whirlwind tour of kind of this, what I call the State of the Union. And now the options and opportunities to address it. And there are a lot of things to look at, and there's not. I mean, Haddonfield has made the decision to reinvest in its buildings. So we're not talking, it's not on the table to demolish any building that's in operation now because it's been reinvested in. That decision will come to the district probably in 50 years from now because most of them have been reinvested into that point. But the first thing to look at as an opportunity, obviously, is Cooley Hall. And Cooley Hall has been studied to death. It's been studied when it was an operational building, and it's been studied after it's been boarded up. I think that you have enough information to make a decision that you really don't need to do any more analysis of it. And just to understand what it is, and there's about 39,000 square feet of it. They're load-bearing walls. It has the metal frame structure, which means that you can gut the inside and make it whatever you want. It was built in the 50s. Those two wings on the side were added on later in the multi-purpose room. The classrooms range in size of 440 square feet to 800. Ideal classroom sizes are around 800. Because it was a special ed building, it had smaller classroom sizes. And it has a lot of offices in there and a multi-purpose room. In terms of if that is usable space of development, it could become 15 to 17 appropriately sized classrooms. It could serve district offices and storage, and also the multi-purpose room could be town recreation space. If you look at the needs that we identified, just in terms of square footage, when I said that we were under the facility efficiency standards of the state, that we would add 22,000 minimally square feet in pre-K 5 and 3,300 in grades 6 to 8 for compliance with those standards. We need district offices and storage, and then the issue if we go from part day to full day preschool and kindergarten classrooms. So obviously we have space needs that we could use that building, that if you pulled things in there, it would allow the other buildings to breathe. The issue is that this is, I think these photos are all, I'm imagining it might be worse than this now. The building needs to be gutted. That, like my guess at this point, the only thing usable in it is probably the superstructure of it. You can see the condition. There's nothing worse than a boarded up building for what happens to it. So you can see on the inside, it had terrazzo in the corridors. I saw pictures. It looks like the terrazzo is either black. I don't know how. I mean, it's breaking up stone. So you see the condition of it. So you're talking gut renovation, not just using, not even the exterior walls. The other, which I think is actually a more important consideration, is the building on the site. That the layout of it is extremely inefficient and takes up almost all of the site that we're getting. And you can see these are all up to scale. So you can see the footprint of Cooley at 39,000 square feet versus Haddon, which has more square footage, but look how condensed the footprint is, as well as Tatum. And that's a major decision because renovating this as is really uses most of the site. You could do selective demolition of it by taking off those wings. The problem is the original part that would have to be kept intact is the front structurally. So you're still sprawling across the site. So the question is to rehabilitate or to demolish it. From a funding point of view, you do much better with the state for funding for rehabilitation. You get 40% on actual construction costs. You do not get that for new construction. It's capped. It works out in the end, maybe 17%. The renovation cost will approximate new construction costs. You're saving very little. And as I said, it's a sprawling building, covers most of the site. Educationally right now, if you talked about space that you need, not depopulating the current elementary schools, but just filling in that. If we would go to a full day preschool and kindergarten program, you'd only need one wing of that school. So that was all that would fill. And the reinvestment limits future options. I didn't talk about sites, but we all need to say that our high school site is considered very, very small. The state took away site standards after a lawsuit from urban areas because it was unfair to penalize them to have a required site size. But we really, I mean, all of our schools have the same site as urban schools. So the decision to demolish that, from a purely objective architectural and design standpoint, the condition, the building configuration, and the site usage warrant demolition. It gives you a clean slate for district facilities planning. And let's face it, we have everything in this district has always been renovated and retrofitted. And at some point, it's kind of nice to start with a clean slate and do something ideal. There is less state funding for new construction if replaced, although, there's the infrastructure bill that's always being kicked around right now. It doesn't include schools, but for preschool, there might be. You know that the state is working towards universal preschool and kindergarten in every district. There might be a clearer picture on that after the election, knowing that there's 4 more years, but right now there isn't funding for it.
Susan, did you say that there was 17% funding?
It comes out, it might be worse now because construction rates have come up. What it is, it's capped at $143 a square foot. So say all your square footage that your building is eligible, and ours should be close to that. It's capped at 143. Well, construction costs right now are at least $350. So I haven't looked right now, and I'm assuming they're even worse than that. So it's an archaic formula that was never adjusted. I think it's the same, and that formula is probably over 20 years old. So that's the issue, that when you renovate, they base it on actual construction costs, 40% of that. So you're actually only getting 40% of $143, knowing that it's much more than that. So I don't know where in the site transfer, the site swap, I kind of chuckled because I saw in one of the articles, or maybe it was a social media post, that the borough was barreling towards the site transfer. I'm like, barreling, this has been 3 years. This is like crawling like a sloth, you know?
We're at the finish line, so we are now at the point where it's a real estate transaction. We have to get some, I'm gonna show you, have to get some deeds drawn up, some titles checked, and then it's a matter of just.
So your critical issue facing you is the demolition of it when the other buildings get demolished, to be confident that you're making the right decision to demolish this building. Speaking as an architect and from a solely facilities perspective, that demolition, I think, is in the best, especially long-term interest of the district. Apart, the state funding would be the only thing that would, to me, that would give you pause in that. But you don't need that square footage, and you don't need it in that configuration. So you probably could even build and construct something that would be less expensive.
Susan, can I ask a question? I'm looking at the layout of this, and let's say we demoed and we did use a different footprint. Would it be possible that there'd be some field space open if we moved it? And would that then be able to tie into some kind of open space grant?
It depends what field. I don't know how far up. I don't know what the site boundaries are. You definitely would build dense on this. You would build at a perpendicular or parallel angle to the site. You would push it to the end of the site. That's something that would need, to be explored. I think, though, the key thing now is that select demolition on this building would not help you with the site. And as I said, to me, the only thing that would cause pause is the state funding on it. But the reality is that you would probably only need to build a 20,000 square foot building. Like, say that you did go to full day preschool for everyone and kindergarten, you would only be building a 20,000 square foot more or less building rather than renovating a 39,000 square foot building. So,
From a price standpoint, how big was the building? 19,000, 18,500, something.
I don't remember. I don't want to misspeak.
Sure.
The one thing though about that, Dave, is that when we used the reason that the cafeteria, because I've heard some people say like, oh, why didn't we do the cafeteria bigger, is that to get the renovation money, we built on the same footprint. So the state considered that even though it was new construction for us, they considered it renovation because it followed the same footprint, and we demolished it out of necessity because of the structural failure. So, all right, so it's probably the most pressing decision that you are facing is to determine what to do with Cooley Hall. The next area, which, obviously is contentious, the school grade alignments and sending areas. And I don't remember whether it's Haddon Heights or Haddon Township, they're in the middle too. And, the reason you can't avoid this discussion on school grade alignments. It's unpopular, people hate change, but the reality is that because it's so difficult right now, when you have growing enrollments, you have space needs, and you look at staffing costs, the building costs, that you have to look at this to at least say, okay, no, not for us. And the reason that it's always on the table in every district is that you change grade alignments and you manage sending areas to address educational objectives, your grade groupings and services, that it can, if you just look at it from a pure educational point of view, that a lot of times it enhances the program delivery. It's the no cost, at least financially for buildings, the no-cost way to address capacity and program space deficiencies. It can help operational efficiencies in terms of staffing and facilities, and also other issues about school population diversity, parity issues, and then community preferences. And sometimes a lot of districts right now, parents are very vocal about having every school be schools of choice. And that's pretty prevalent in the state, that a lot of districts will hold a certain population for neighborhood in the sending area, and then they have lotteries for the other spaces. But all of these issues have different weights in different communities, and it's a reason that you have to look at it, and especially when you have buildings that are older, at their capacity limits, aren't as program responsive as they should be, to at least look at and say, no, it's not for us. So a thing to understand the potential of realignment, and I showed this slide before, and my apologies, there was an audience at that time. This was just put up to show you the potential, not set as the argument to do it, but this was the utilization in 2019. So what you're looking at, the lines of 25, 50, 75, 100, they're class sizes. So the bars, the gray part is extra seats that are not filled in the class because of class size policies, and we wouldn't have, for example, a class of 28 in elementary, it forces another section. So you kind of see all of those gray bars of extra capacity when you have 3 elementary schools. And then that year in Central, that it actually went to 27 a class, the red bar that went over our policy. So if you look at this, and as I said, it's just to understand the most extreme scenario, you can reduce probably 5 elementary school classrooms if you consolidate it down so that you could get rid of those gray areas, push 3 bars into 2 or 3 bars into 1. And one of the reasons that, districts do this, because it's a no building solution to crowding, is because of that kind of efficiency. And also, bubbles are a pain. I mean, we've gone through them several times in different schools. As I said, like we saw that Tatum bubble go through for 2nd grade. Here is one, there's one, I think, for Central before that. And then as you consolidate and get, and eliminate the need for some classrooms, then now you have, for example, in this case, you consolidated, you have 5 classrooms that could support your maker spaces, the better media center, put art and music back. So that's why it's an unavoidable discussion, even if it is to discount it.
Susan, can you just real quick explain? So if I was trying to just read it so I understand, like you have 2nd grade, 76%, and if you look at Tatum, there's the gray part that said like 66%.
Right.
I just don't understand what I'm looking at.
So the bottom line where it says kindergarten 60%, 1st grade 86%, that's the capacity utilization of all available seats.
But does that include like taking away the special rooms?
No, that's, for example, Central, right in this one, let's do 1st grade, it had 3 classrooms. So based on our policy of 25 per room, it could have accommodated 75 students in that. It only used 85% of that capacity. So that's what it's telling you how full the class got. So the numbers at the top then are the capacity utilization. And the reason that some of them are in red is the state advocates that you should plan for 90% capacity utilization so that you can see there's only a few, even though our buildings feel crowded and our district feels crowded at pre-K5, there's only a few sections in each school that exceeded the 90% utilization. And that's because we open extra sections typically as we need them. Did that clear that out a little bit?
No, but if I want to continue, I'll ask you offline.
Maybe the best thing is if you look at the very last for 5th grade Tatum, so, see, that's 100%. They had, that year they had exactly 75 students enrolled in 5th grade. And that might have been managed a bit, but so that's where, so that's 100%. Overall, 5th grade in the district was at 99% capacity because Central was over at 105% and Elizabeth Haddon had 89% of capacity filled.
And would it be fair, just to see if I understood it correctly, 2nd grade at Tatum, does that mean that we just were like lower in a classroom that year? Like instead of 4 2nd grades, we had 3?
There for whatever reason, there were 4 sections that year. That's what the lines are. So 100, so 4 sections. But
there were 4.
That's one of the scenarios where rather than have 30 kids per class, we opened up another section, but it made the utilization, so all the classes were lower. And I'm not criticizing low class sizes, but we probably had class sizes of 7, I guess my math isn't great, 17, and that's why you only had 68%. But because of the way we're structured, you're not going to have class sizes of 30. So that's what the 68% utilization
You're
was.
saying like take, whatever the limit is we want on a class, if it's 25, 26, you can still keep that. You're just saying that on average in a lot of these classrooms, it might be 23, 24, 22.
Correct.
And so if you take all of them and you put them all into the same building, put all the first grade sections at 22, 23, you can still stay with under 25, and you can, by doing that, save space because
Correct.
you get rid of some extra sections, right?
Right.
Or stay under your number, whatever that is.
Another way to say it is to open that fourth section of second grade, cost them probably the music room.
So, I mean, and that's why this is an issue, and that's why boards tackle it, even though it is unpleasant, and it is problematic. And, here in Haddonfield, we know that there's a community preference for neighborhood elementary school, but it needs to be weighed program delivery objectives, your operational efficiencies, which are a lot, and building costs. So the thing to remember as you move forward is renovation cannot solve your current space deficiencies. We looked during the 2016 referendum for so-called found space. What can we do that's better utilized? And I'm telling you, we looked everywhere. We found a mezzanine above the locker rooms in the middle school, and we're like, woo-hoo, it had full ceiling heights, there wasn't mechanical equipment, it was dead space. And it could be accessed from the corridor. And we actually looked at what it would cost to renovate that, and in the end, it was like more expensive than new construction, and we dropped it. But to give you an idea of the depth that we looked at for found space, but as I said, like you can look at the floor plans and the utilization rates. Renovation, you can't renovate your way out of this. That's not going to happen. There is no room for an expanded preschool program. And then there's the issue of parity. I know that student outcome is a big issue among the three schools and how to perform and testing, but there's also hitting a point where facilities parity is really going to probably be an issue too, especially depending on what enrollments happen at Haddon and whether you decide to manage it, because at what point, they don't have a music room, they have a very small they have the smallest library, computer room, they have an art room that's actually shouldn't be used, it's not accessible. And I think I didn't touch on that in there because I didn't want to get school specific, but the 1913, the original wing in Elizabeth Haddon is problematic from so many reasons, in terms of accessibility, no bathrooms, students having to leave the building and come in the basement to take part. They even have a small group room in the basement, I think used for OTPT, that's not accessible. So, as I said, if anything, you might be losing space if you get into the weeds educationally. So, that's the thing that, we'll get back to when we talk about goal prioritization and option scenarios, that there really are some big decisions to be made. The 2016 referendum was actually right when I was joining the board. It was why I joined the board, that you had an empty board seat that you were interviewing, and I'm reading in the paper about like these people hammering the district for applying for facilities grants. And so when we came and we were trying to decide whether we needed the facilities grants and we were exploring that, we realized all the masonry issues. And for those who weren't here, there was scaffolding holding the B-gym up there. We had contractors taking parapet stone down. So, it really was like something critical that we had to move quickly. And we tried to give it the pre-planning diligence that it needed. And we did internally, and maybe we fell a little short from the public having them understand, that made it a little bit of a difficult referendum, but it was done in detail. And there's a wealth of information and planning from it. But the focus was on righting the ship at that point of it was a physical plan all the way. And we did pause at a point because when you're doing certain work, there's opportunities to do other work that you can do less expensively, bidding it at the same time. And I knew from earlier studies, I knew that we were short science rooms in the high school, that we had a really outdated home ec room that was falling apart. So there were some select things put in there that were economical to do at that point. The district, I think, should be really, really proud, and especially like Mike for like budgeting, the capital maintenance turnaround in the district, and, Tim runs a fabulous crew, is exceptional, and we accomplished a lot out of the operating budget. So, and you'll continue to do that, but you can't do everything out of the operating budget, and you certainly can't do educational work out of it. So the next referendum on the table really should have a strong educational component in it. It wasn't addressed at all really in the last referendum. And some of the goals, when you talk about, the list, and I don't want to call it a wish list, because none of this is a wish list. It's things that should be provided that, take out your crystal ball for the pre-KK programs and when expansion is going to happen and whether there'll be funding for it. Where's the priority for improving and expanding specialized spaces, the media center, visual arts classroom, STEMs, that kind of thing. Student services accommodations are really poor, really could use an upgrade, small group rooms, conference rooms, offices. There's no breathing room in any of these buildings. I can imagine what the summer planning is like when enrollments come in, like looking to how to do things for new programs. The middle school is really being squeezed. You really need to figure out a way to have that expand a little bit into central. We put a pin in the high school A wing at the time, deciding not to do a whole lot of physical plant there because it really does need to be modernized. The issue of 540 square foot classrooms and having all those bodies in it. I'm sure everyone is here has been in one of the math or world language classrooms with like 30 kids in there, and you can't even like move around the desks. And then also we have, again, district offices located on the second floor that are inaccessible, and also other offices sprawled throughout the district that we really should look at consolidating administrative offices in accessible space. And also most districts, even if it's one of those pole barns, have storage so that it is so much cheaper to bulk order supplies and have storage. And that's another thing. And that's something that potentially could happen on the Bancroft site. In terms of physical plant goals, obviously identify capital maintenance that's difficult to fund out of the budget. And whatever, and a recommendation from an architectural point of view is that whatever you decide to renovate and touch, do it comprehensively, knowing that you're not going to go back to it. So, as I said, that was the decision for the A wing last time, that we didn't have enough money to do it right, so we left it. I'm going to go through just really quickly some grade alignment options, and this again is, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and what sticks. It's important, even like things that the district doesn't want to do, to look at it so you can discount it, because these things do pop up. So obviously, I don't believe there's ever a no cost option. There's a no building cost option, but there's certainly not a no educational cost option. So you have to look at it. What does it mean to keep the status quo? Maintain the existing pre-K-5 configuration. That there's no change to the neighborhood school organization, which means for any sort of improvement, you're doing building additions for the space programs and also for any sort of early childhood expansion. Like, obviously, Central is a unique issue being tied to the middle school and the middle school needs. So you're looking at what can you do at Haddon and Tatum. Haddon does need to be studied. There might be some opportunities there. There might be second floor opportunities there. I'm not certain how those buildings were structured. I'm not certain why a single story long addition was built on a site that's not large. So there might be opportunities there. Tatum obviously has more opportunity for expansion. I don't know the status of those buildings that were for sale next to it. Are those still on the table? So, but then the issue there is how much capacity do you put in Tatum to depopulate the other schools? So this is still fraught with, status quo is still fraught with issues. Either way, you're still, even if you'll have neighborhood schools, there's certainly ascending area readjustment. If ever, I'm not even certain we have formal ascending areas. They're kind of like fuzzy lines. But this, this would be doing what you can, where you can, and then figuring out how you're distributing the students. So then looking at grade changes. So if you wanted to take the thing saying, you know, we don't want to build new construction. What's the best that we can do to avoid new construction? You could make, which is just less extreme than the grade, all having unique grade level schools, make Haddon and Tatum for pre-K3 and Central for grades 4 to 5. So that provides the greatest facilities benefit with the least cost. As I said, you get the highest state funding for renovation. It does involve a major school sending area and program organization change, but it proves the ability to use available capacity, thinking back to those gray bars that, you know, obviously right now, for example, we have, you know, in elementary schools, we have 9 sections of each grade around the district that you probably would not need 9 sections if they were only in 2 locations. So when you reduce that capacity in the schools, you're only having grades pre-K to 3. You don't need as many sections that you'll free up classrooms for the specialized spaces. So that's the allure of that. It reduces the grade level classroom needs, but it's not as extreme or efficient though as having one school served. You know, so obviously, if you wanted to do the most facility efficient, you'd have a K2. You'd have the pre-K 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. The positive of this also is that having Central only for grades 4 and 5, 2 grades. I mean, think about it. There's, you know, even though it's district-wide, it's currently 6 there, is that it certainly will fix a whole lot of middle school problems because they would be able to move into some of that space. So from the facility and cost versus educational benefit, without any other considerations on the table, this is probably one of the best options. So then looking at softening up each other, saying, okay, we're new construction is inevitable. You could maintain the 3 neighborhood schools for grades 1 to 5 and then build a new pre-KK building on Bancroft. So what this does, it kind of meets in the middle. It keeps the same structure. You don't really have inefficiencies of consolidating everything, but by pulling out the pre-K and K, you gain a couple of rooms in each building, which will go a long way for providing some of the missing spaces. And then you're building a new building on the Bancroft site.
When we looked at the grade level options, there was only a handful of properties that cost 2 miles from the site. So our transportation costs weren't really triggered. You see any triggering of transportation?
No, and that's why if you look at the K2 schools were Haddon and.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense because that solves those.
Now the pre-K building on the Bancroft site, it might in the back.
It
But
might
we're already
affect
doing
probably
busing.
18 properties on
Yeah.
that acres.
I think we talked about that before. So, you know, this is another way of looking at it. And then finally, if that you can purchase some of that adjacent land to Tatum, if you want to preserve the Bancroft site as part of the high school for the future, which again is not a bad idea, considering how land poor we are in high school. But we could look at putting the preschool building, you know, on the Tatum, on their site or an expanded site. So this just gives you a range of things to look at. And these are things that are really quick studies. It's not even at this point a cost analysis because it's comparable. Because you know one of these options, if you're building 10,000 square feet, and the other option you're building 30, well, you know what's the more expensive option. It's not worth spending a lot of money, having someone price out each thing. Because it's really the big decisions of, I think the first decision facing you, obviously, is the disposition of Cooley Hall. You have to get that off the table. And then seeing which of these grade alignments are palatable to even explore. You know, as I talked about like spaghetti to the wall, some of these are going to drop down for whatever reason. But, you know, they are the tough decisions. And I don't need to tell anyone here that you'll never have everyone agreeing on everything and not even the board. I mean, even our capital maintenance referendum, we did not agree along the board for the scope of work, and we had some no's. And just, you know, so at that point, when you have the idea, you got to have it whittled down at least to 1 or 2, that's when you work with the architect and really hone in on the scope of work and the affordability of it. So the next steps, which is really the next step, is to decide, are you proceeding with exploring a referendum? I mean, I think that's the base question. You know, it's easy now for me to sit here on this side, but like, the board has really been through a lot the last 4 years. I mean, between, you know, the end of the referendum and all the other things that have happened, not to go in them all, you know, and this is again, jumping into the fire. So you have, you know, is it important and necessary? Yes, but I think like, you know, the timing is an issue. But just to give you an idea, and as I think everyone here knows, these don't happen overnight and they're certainly not quick. So say you wanted to do a September 2023 referendum, right? So that's almost 2 years away. And that coordinates with significant debt retirement. I don't want to get into that, but you know, Mike probably later can give you a report about what's retiring and what could, you know, what that puts in as a zero impact.
I'm sorry,
So-
can I have one clarifying question? So when we say referendum, is that when we are voted and it's already been accepted by then? Or denied?
That's where the public
Or that's
vote.
when it's on the ballot? Oh, this is
Exactly.
just for it getting on the
Right,
ballot?
because when you want to bond money in New Jersey, you have to get public vote approval.
Right, that much I knew, so, but when we say the referendum, it's just putting it on the ballot.
It's
So
just
this
putting, right.
is the work.
And
against
you develop the plans to appoint, the public votes on it. If they say yes, then you go for, it's another year for construction documents, then you go out to bid, and then 2 years for construction. So you would not have this, whatever we're doing, until 2026. Just to put this in context, that's why when you have debt retiring, it's a big deal because it makes makes it obviously more affordable. So and believe it or not, it's somewhat of a little bit of a hectic schedule for some September 23 referendum. What you'd have to do almost immediately because of these decisions about, because you're talking, it's one thing to convince the public for capital maintenance. When you're talking making educational changes, you have to have an engagement plan. So that's what you would have to work on now. What's a district and community engagement plan? We did have a community long-range plan committee that I think I presented them up to the educational adequacy. So that, I don't know, that committee could be reformed or not. What you would probably need to do from now to the end of the year in committee is determine the district priorities and the school grade alignment options that you want to analyze in detail. Then in December, you'd also start the interview process for a referendum architect. And then by June, you're going to complete the option analysis and finalize the referendum scope of work. And that's a lot of work. So you're deciding the angle that you're deciding, the grade configuration, what you want the district to be, and then you're filling in the blanks of what's new construction and renovation. And it has to go, some of these timelines actually I think could move a little bit. You have to apply to the DOE, get approvals before you go to bid, July to January. DOE has cleaned up its approval process, they're much quicker. But you can see, the critical work, what matters for the district will happen from January to June. And you have to see with what else is going on in the district when you make that commitment. There's other options. You have January, March, September, November, December as referendum dates. We went out last time in March, which typically is the least successful time to do. People have like taxes and they're not like, it's not the happiness of September that's gone. But
And 23 is non-gubernatorial and non-federal. So it's probably the most boring election cycle from a focus standpoint. There's nothing hot on the presses that would charge you up.
Right, and the nice thing that you have this time is that, last time we had to get the referendum out. We had to, because even we made a decision, the type of scaffolding that we put on the B wing that was only going to last a year because it was significant cost savings to do it that way. Like it had to happen. And this, it's important to update the buildings, absolutely. And should it be a district priority? Yes. It's just that, when your house is on fire, you can take a little bit more time with it. And because you want it to be successful and you want to make sure that the community is engaged and supportive. And I don't know what else is on the table for that timing.
Well, the B wing was bad. The facade was falling off of Tatum. We had to actually spend an emergency spend, which is like one of the 2 times you could dip into reserves. I mean, it was a $50,000 project just to keep the building from falling down. Section 4, the back.
So that's, so that's the good news, you don't have that now. But there should, as I said, there still should be a sense of urgency that, we've made, you've made a commitment to the buildings, and this is the next step in that process, is educationally updating that. As I said, I really recommend to arrange some building tours of newer buildings in the area. And just as a comparison to see what they offer. So that's it for my presentation tonight. As I said, I'm sorry, this was supposed to be for the retreat, and I think it was just like a long night already, then to add this on top of it. But
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And I'm here to help to develop, whatever that you need to get started, and when you eventually hire someone, to hand off and help. But I think that it probably would benefit for, to go back into committee and to decide how you want to move forward and what.
Hey Susan, just because you brought up the buildings around Tatum a couple of times, and if you don't know it, you have to look it up, it's not a big deal, but, did someone say in the past, because of the gasoline or oil tanks with the, gas station there, does that make it that it can never have?
No, it can be, it'll cost you, if you have to remediate and take it out. They've built school sites on worse. The only thing that would be an issue, if there's one of those gas pipelines, if there's like something active like that runs through the site, that would be an issue, but I don't think there is there. There's one like it runs kind of along Crescent Road and it cuts by 295. Those are issues, these underground high pressure gas lines, but I don't think that's an issue.
For that space over there, just one thing, we had talked about was just, getting to, I think we should definitely look at, anytime there's space to look at it, just getting to and from it, with it being on the road. What's the best use of that space? Is it pre-K, K, is it something else? Is there, kind of administrator offices, storage? I don't know what the best usage of that space would be.
But that's when you hire the architect who plans on traffic patterns and makes the recommendation.
No, and I can tell you, I know some districts that bus all of their pre-KK just not to have traffic. So there's different ways of dealing with it.
I thought that was great though, Susan, that was really helpful.
Yeah, thank you so
Susan.
much.
And Susan, can we get a copy of that? That really, there's a lot of
Mike
great
has a
information.
link, so you could,
We'll probably, there's the Longrange facilities section of the website, we'll just add it on to that.
yeah, no, I'm not gonna.
Right, it's presentation 4
Yeah.
of the bunch.
And just so you know, in terms of the long range plan, you're current with the state. I think you have 3 more years on your approval. We updated the long range plan with the state a couple of years ago when you're doing.
Actually, January, we just updated, did the, whatever.
Right, the minor amendment,
Updated was
but
just
the
January.
major amendment. So I kind of think of this, so you're okay with the state and you'll update that whenever you have new work that you want to progress. So that's why I kind of think of this as the district's capital plan work, because this is referendum work, what you're discussing. This is the best part.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan.
I'll be happy
It's nice
if you
having you
want
back
to,
with us again for a little bit.
no problem. If you in the facilities, but if you want to come back, me to dial in and discuss anything, that's fine too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, let's move on to board committee reports, curriculum committee. I don't have anything I reported out last time. Finance and facilities.
Not since last time.
Okay, policy, right? So, all right, anyone have any PTA updates?
I have, the Haddonfield Educational Trust and Lizzie Haddon PTA. So the HET meeting was on October 21st, and the big thing that they wanted me to share tonight was teacher grants. The applications are up on the website. They are open all year long, so teachers can apply at any time. But the next round of applications that they will be considering are due in mid-November.
And they're awesome. They funded things like Debbie Adams, third grade, Lizzie Haddon teacher, got flexible seating for her class. Deb Landry, the gifted and talented teacher, that a gifted and talented bookshelf and a lending library for all students. And recently, I know we've all read about Holly Mays, the ninth grade English teacher, that collaboration that she did with Mabel Kay with the students writing biographies about senior citizens. That was through an HET grant. So there's a lot of great opportunities for teachers to get some money, some funding for things. They usually fund 5 to 6 grants, but there's no set number, and they usually fund about $10,000 worth each year. But again, there's no set number. So teachers should apply for grants. And then I went to the Lizzie Haddon PTA meeting on October 19th. They're off to a great start this year. They had their fall fair in early October and moved it to a Friday night, which generated $35,000 in revenue and $27,000 in profit. So it was a huge, huge success. And they're doing Dine and Donate. A book fair with Inkwood is scheduled for November 28th through December 4th. They've been fulfilling teacher wish lists. All regular field trips will happen again this year. And they're busy with Halloween and 5th grade celebrations and all sorts of great stuff. So.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have anything? Okay, Dr. Priolo, do you have anything?
Gosh, I wish I didn't talk about COVID or testing. I really look forward to the meeting when I don't, but I do have a couple updates with that. So last week we rolled out our first round of phase 1 of our mandatory testing for unvaccinated staff. And of course, at the 11th hour, the state threw us a curveball and our assigned testing vendor was not up and running. So we were kind of left in the lurch, but we were able to coordinate pretty efficient and effective and successful planning for weeks 1 and 2 through Adler Pharmacy. We tested between 20 and 30 staff members. It went really well. Next week will be the first week we'll be utilizing our in-district, our state appointed vendor. So I have my fingers crossed, and we're trying to do everything possible on the back end to make sure it goes as smoothly and as efficiently as things have gone. The other big news was we announced yesterday 2 in-district vaccination clinics for 5 through 12-year-olds. And, this just talks about the purposeful planning we do as a district. We actually met and discussed and put together these dates probably 8 weeks ago in anticipation of vaccination approval around this time, and just waited until the tea leaves said that the approval is imminent and we're able to roll it out. So my inbox, I'll tell you, the arc of my email inbox yesterday went, oh my goodness, Dr. Priolo, thank you so much. This is great that this district is doing this. To, oh my God, how come you didn't plan any more sessions? I got shut out. How can you do this to us? So it was a bit of a roller coaster of a day. I can assure the board and the community that we're doing everything we can to increase capacity, but it would be short-sighted to think that we're going to be a sole provider of vaccines for our 5 through 11-year-olds. Far from it. We just got on it first. So we're hoping that the county systems reboot and reopen in some spots. There are several mega sites that have since closed down that we're advocating for them to reopen. We have reached out directly to the New Jersey Department of Health, said we want to send us vaccinators, we'll host. And again, we're also trying to increase the capacity of the work that we're doing with Adler's Pharmacy. Adler's Pharmacy is a sole mom and pop shop. It's not it's not a large conglomerate. And they're working with some other school districts. So it's just a matter of capacity and availability. But we're doing everything we can to try to make it as accessible and convenient for the community. And I guess the only other thing I will add that's not COVID related, we just wrapped up all of our fall gifted and talented testing for all of our kindergarten students and our newly enrolled students. In all, we tested over 100 students. I would say 85% of the score reports went out. We just finished the second round of testing this past week. We'll get those full reports out within the next, I would say 10 to 14 days. And that process has gone very smoothly and efficiently. I have to thank the principals and thank Deb Landry, our elementary school gifted and talented teacher, for her hard work and diligence in making this work. Any questions about anything? Yeah, Heather.
So the Adler pharmacy and the testing of the staff, is there a central location here, or do they have to go to the pharmacy?
No, we're hosting it here in the district.
Okay,
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be over at Central Middle.
so all the teachers that need to go there and then,
Wait, I'm sorry.
so the testing, so the staff
Oh, I'm
testing,
sorry. The testing we do at the high school.
okay.
We do in the high school cafeteria. We set it up once a week between 3 and 4. Folks come in, they're pretty much in and out. And as I communicated in the health news, this is phase 1 of the testing program. Phase 2 will offer testing for any staff or student, regardless of their vaccination status. So once we get our system up and running with the state vendor, we have some smooth weeks. We'll be communicating with the community about if any community member, if any child or staff member would like to be tested, we are going to be able to provide that testing. The other piece of internal testing capacity we're working on is providing point of care testing in our nurse's office, not for voluntary testing, but for students or staff that are symptomatic. So what currently happens is we discover students that has a hacking cough in school. We call the parent, they come pick them up, and they're out pending a test that the parent then has to provide. What we're trying to build capacity to do, and we're almost there. We're almost there. Where we identify that student who has the hacking cough, they go to the nurse's office, but before they leave, we provide the parent the option to come into the nurse's office, do a shallow nasal swab with the testing kit. We send it off to testing, and we get the results back the next day. So hopefully that will be a courtesy to our families that once you get over sometimes the frustration of having to bring your child home and then go through on the internet and figure out where you can get testing quickly. We know many families are paying upwards of $200 to get a rapid PCR test back, which private companies are providing at a premium. And this would be at no cost to the community. So those are the things we are diligently working on.
You know, just anecdotally, don't beat yourself up, because just this week, I was in a meeting with a colleague and he was proudly announcing that his wife had preemptively gotten an appointment with their pediatrician, and everyone there from Lower Marion, and everyone was trying to get to get a spot. And then I told him what was going on in this district with the clinic, and he was just astounded. So
Thank you for sharing that.
it's sometimes when you're in the weeds, it's hard to recognize the good work that's doing.
Thank you.
Parents are appreciative.
And similar to that is, the notice went out, I got emails from 3 other superintendents nearby saying, how'd you do this? I said, I didn't do anything, but drills and everything, call him up and ask him. I just sat here.
That includes other BAs too.
On gifted and talented, I know we made changes to our testing for gifted and talented, and changes to the programs for gifted and talented. What's next? Is there some later readout on how the program is progressing and how students are doing? Like, I know it's to make it more challenging for those students, but I don't know what, if anything, is left for the gifted and talented.
Well, I wouldn't phrase it as making it more challenging for the students. I would phrase it as meeting them at their level, appropriately providing services for them. We're always evaluating and reevaluating the program to do it better. Dr. Murray has done some great work over the past year in bringing in some consultants and working with our staff and increasing our training services that we provide. So it's really a constant evaluation. The next step really are to look at things like a policy on single subject or grade level acceleration for some students, because we know that within the population of our gifted and talented students. There's also a subset from there who kind of separate themselves from that path, where a grade level teacher's ability to differentiate instruction in a grade level classroom may not be enough, or we may not be practical to meet that student's needs. And we have had a history of grade level acceleration or single subject grade level acceleration in some very unique circumstances, but we really don't have a policy or practice to, I guess, to do that uniformly. So I know from a programmatic perspective, that's something I'm looking to improve.
Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Klaus, the superintendent report?
Okay, so just it's going to be a brief one tonight. I have 4 things on there, but it's going to be brief. As you know, this week we had grade 6 at Central School and middle school, and 2 of our Central School grade 3 classrooms had closures this week. Here's the data. This is the data from the letters. 4 confirmed positive. They came very quickly in grade 6, and in grade 3 we had the 5 positives in 6 days, and then since we closed in both cases, we had an additional positive case. It should be noted that according to the Department of Health, these were both classified as outbreaks because of the numbers and the circumstances surrounding them. We have noticed that just anecdotally, the onset of the symptoms was much more rapid than what we've seen before. Like before, it was just slow. I'm not feeling well. Several of these cases where they came to school feeling fine, and by noon they're like, "Oh, I feel awful." By 3 o'clock they have bad headaches and that. So a lot of also other bugs going around. They're non-COVIDs. We have a bunch of kids who are out symptomatic, but we have negative PCR tests. So there's a lot going on. So it is crazy, we keep talking about the pressure this puts on our administrative and our teachers. But these are the closures, and they're fortunately we're off next week, so that was wonderful. Unfortunately, it's Halloween tomorrow, and for a 3rd grader, as I saw missing today, when you're missing a Halloween thing, that's the world, right? So we really feel our heart goes out to those kids. This is where we're on the land swap, and so the 20th, CHIPA approved the subdivision. We're approving the MOA or the updated MOA today, and then you see the rest of this list. This is now we're a real estate transaction, right? We're going to get we're going to run some title searches. We're going to prepare some deeds, and we're going to swap some lands, and that's where we are. I mean, it is that close. These are things that are, they don't happen overnight, but all the big hurdles have been passed. So we are now, right at the finish line when this should be happening. And then once it happens, we have to get an environmental update for the Hawkins parcel, talk about the demolition of Cooley Hall, and then gets the Green Acres Fund. So we're right there right now. So it's been a long time. I think I wasn't an administrator when it started. But we're there now.
No, you weren't.
I was the high school administrator.
Oh, yeah, well, you were the principal.
Here's our COVID dashboard. Look at that. I mean, you can see how this is much more active. If you remember last year, I was talking to the Cynthia today. Halloween was ground zero last year, right? We were cruising along. There was no problems. All of a sudden, Halloween came, and everything went nuts, right? And as we talked, Ms. Cynthia said, they canceled outdoor trick or treating, and that drove people. In hindsight, that drove people inside, right? And so then all of a sudden, who knows? Maybe it's better for you to go out trick or treating this year. There's our Cali scores. The numbers are coming down. They're kind of hovering. They're not dropping dramatically, but you can see they are coming down. Now you'll notice these charts look different. In the past, I had the chart from 16 months worth of data there. This is just since July 1st, so it's easier to see because when they were the full year is all these up and down. So this is just since July 1st. So you see we peaked a little bit there, but we are coming down slowly. That's our case rate. And then our presentation. So the 11th, we're going to be seeing athletics, similar to what we did today. I also think on the 11th, we're going to have the madrigals. The 18 madrigals will come to sing for us. CUSAC, which is right around the corner. That's December 9th. And then some future pieces there. So any questions or for me? All right, that's all right.
Okay, I don't have much for the board president report. I am going to, go with Linda's, recommendation here because I trust her that Chuck had did a great video to explain the calendar. So if anyone has any questions about the calendar, that is apparently a really good video and I'm looking forward to watching it very soon. And I want to thank also Gino for your work on, I think all of us agree that your work on getting those clinics set up was, I mean, I saw that and I was like, wow. And I knew it was coming, but it was still like, it was really quick and fast. So I think I commend you on that because that's a lot of foresight. So thank you.
And can I say one thing, the district newsletter where the Hollywood video was linked. The newsletter format itself, I mean, I know you guys have been working on communications, but I mean, I thought that the newsletter looked great, and then I saw the upcoming, the Parent Square app in there, so, you know, we talk about COVID and all these other things, but you guys have been doing a lot of other work that is going to be really helpful, and that whole, I mean, I just feel like communications has just continued to be exceptional. So thank you for all that work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to public comments. I'll read the open public comment statement. We will now begin the open public comment session. Members of the community are invited to speak for no more than 3 minutes about agenda items at this time. Non-agenda comments will be taken at the end of the meeting and follow the same guidelines. If your 3 minutes is up, we invite you to get to the back of the line if you'd like to make additional comments. This is an opportunity for the board to listen, but not debate issues or enter into a question and answer period. Please be aware that not all issues brought up before a board meeting will be resolved that evening. We ask you to state your name and street so that a designee can get back to you with a response if warranted. General responses to comments will be posted on the Board of Ed website under the Resources tab where it says Open Public Comment Replies. While public education can be an emotional issue, we strive to maintain a certain level of decorum at the meeting. Public meetings are recorded and televised, and students often participate in the meetings. As such, citizens are expected to maintain a tone of courtesy and civility. So at this time, anyone would like to make a statement? You may approach the podium.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Esposito. I am from 161 Windsor Avenue. I have 4 sons in the district. 2 currently attend Tatum Elementary. 2 will be going to Tatum in the next few years. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about the, I guess, the payment, if you will, for our educational assistants. I know that that's on the agenda for the approval of additional ones. My son, Andrew, is the recipient of many wonderful services that the school district provides for special needs children. Among them is a one-to-one educational aid. Andrew has been enrolled at, in the district in multiple different schools, just because of sizing and classroom management numbers, I guess. But in his tenure of being a student in the Haddonfield School District, he's had approximately 21 different educational assistants. One of the educational assistants he actually had for 2 to 3 years, so that was kind of a nice opportunity for him. But why I'm standing before you guys today is that the people that apply for this job, you know, they're not, the retention rate is very poor. It's hard to get someone to stay in that job. It's not an easy job. And the starting salary is minimum wage. To not offer a living wage to someone that's such a vital aspect of our community and for the most at-risk students in our schools is really something that needs to be addressed. I navigated not only our schools, our district website, looking at the postings, I also looked at different groups that we may contract through, including our food services, and their starting salaries are higher than the educational assistant's starting salary in this district. In Haddon Township alone, their lunch aides make $2.50 more than ours do as a starting salary. So I just kindly ask that as you guys I know it's a budgetary item, but it's something, you know, our special needs students need consistency. And my son thrives in that kind of environment. And for him to have this week alone, because I know that there needs to be a board approval for his new educational assistant, has had 3 different individuals with him. My son is verbal, but he's not coherently verbal, and not to disclose too much. So his communication abilities are really affected. And for him to have someone that understands him is vital for his success and his growth. So I just ask if you, moving forward, that we give those that apply for this job the dignity of earning a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to, items needing approval. So with governance, we're accepting the monthly HIV report, approval of fire and safety drill report, approval of some bus emergency evacuation drill reports. We have the first reading of several policies, second reading and adoption of 2, and we are abolishing some of the policies that really we started with COVID. And the approval of the job description for the Equity Council Facilitator. Resolution to approve the emergency virtual remote instruction plan. Resolution to approve the COVID-19 vaccine clinics. Approval of the Danielson Framework rubrics for following personnel, and then approval of the settlement agreement for an HIV case. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Linda?
Second.
Linda. Okay, discussion?
Yes, I had a question about the Danielson framework rubric. Only because there was, I couldn't get to those links. I just don't know what that is, so.
We use the Danielson model for our teacher evaluation, and really developed frameworks for these positions, counselors, nurses, and media specialists. So that now, they're while we were doing our point scoring and the rubrics for our teachers, those tended to be more narrative. So now this puts them in line with what the teachers are receiving. It's also part of a QSAC requirement. We have these models as opposed to just narrative pieces.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I have a question on on G, the building level equity council facilitator. Is that one, or is there
There's
one for each building?
two per building.
2 per building.
So at this line, we have our three strategic plan goals. The equity goal, the cultural responsibility, was the only one who didn't have stipend positions at the building level for leaders. So this now puts that in place. And what will happen is these will be trained teachers, turnkey training, working with Rowan and then coming in the building. So this provides a paid positions in the building as well.
And 2 per.
2 per building.
Thank you.
And they are, just to clarify, they are employees who will then be getting a stipend.
Correct.
So they already are working for us.
We're already working for us, yes, yes.
So we're not hiring new positions.
Right, so we have
We're just getting
LEPC for the
stipends.
academical, we have the SEL has groups in every building, so this will be similar to that.
Anything else? Mike, you want to call?
Ms. Hope,
Yes.
Ms. Hollingworth,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Mr. Sydell,
Yes.
Vice President Hogarth,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
and President Brooke.
Yes. Okay, curriculum and special education, approval of field trips, conferences, et cetera. Resolution to approve the scope and sequence for the roller program. Resolution to approve the updated freshman, 7th grade, 8th grade health curriculums, and resolution to approve contemporary novel curriculum. Approval of the professional development planning for the year. Resolution between the Red Trunk Project curriculum and the Board of Education, which is going to all the 4th grade elementary schools in the district. Resolution with Family First. Resolution between Learn Well and the Haddonfield Board of Ed for educational services. Resolution between Speech Language Associates and the Haddonfield Board of Ed for consultative services. A resolution between Best Buddies International and the Board of Ed resolution between the Center for Families and the Haddonfield Board of Ed for weekly educational services for a student. Resolution to approve the high school social studies professional development field trip. A resolution to approve a professional development field trip to the Philadelphia Art Museum. Resolution for a student to receive homebound instruction. Resolution to approve effective school solutions for staff development during, for staff wellness. Resolution to approve Dr. Philip Kendall to provide staff professional development also for wellness. Resolution to approve Shine Your Light to provide SEL professional development for district administrators. Approval of this year's nursing services plan and textbook approval for the Vanishing Hand. Motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Heather and Dave, discussion?
I just, in T, the nursing services plan, Dana's name's still on there.
Oh, okay.
How did we choose S, or sorry, on S, how do we choose Shine Your Light?
So Dr. Murray and I initially interviewed her, reviewed the proposal, talked about some needs that we had. We had a follow-up session with her, and that's how we did it.
No, Grant, I just wasn't sure. I mean, obviously, I'm partial to our SEL goals. I think they're really important. So I just wasn't sure if there was something in particular we were hoping to gain that was some unique angle associated with this versus something else. It sounds like she showed well through an interview. I'm not asking about the selection process, just about the content of whatever is going to be delivered.
Yeah, what we did was we retained her to work specifically with our administrative team on wellness initiatives. So just as on our wellness day, we're providing lots of adult-centered activities for our staff. We're having a solo session just for our admin team. And we thought her skill set, based on what we saw, would lend well, and we're hoping that we're right. So we'll know. We're working with her on Tuesday morning from 11 to 12.
Awesome.
Okay, Mike, can you call?
Ms. Hollingworth,
Approved. Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Vice President Hogerville,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
President Crooked.
Yes. Okay, moving on to personnel, approval of new personnel, transfers, upgrades, salary upgrades, mentoring, et cetera. Resolution to pay the following social emotional implementation team. That's a tough one this late in the night. Resolution to approve Fawn Corn to support 2 students. Resolution to approve Jessica Fingerman and Griselle Rodriguez to provide ELL support. Resolution to pay for the following teachers to attend Sunday training. Resolution to approve scoring of the elementary district writing assessments. Okay, motion?
Motion. Second.
Linda Just. Any discussion? Okay, I can call.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Vice President Hogerville,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Hollingworth,
Yes.
President Crooked.
Yes. Okay, approval of the following business and finance recommendations. Approval of the contract with JSV Entertainment. Acknowledge the receipt of the budget calendar for the 22-23 school year budget. Approval of the maintenance budget worksheets. Resolution to approve the NL Aquatic Center rental contract. Approval of the Southern New Jersey Perinatal Cooperative for nursing services. Approval to increase the substitute nurse pay rate to $225 per day. Approve Viata Home Healthcare Nurses to provide substitute nursing services. Approve amendment up to the memorandum of agreement with the Borough of Haddonfield for the land swap. Payment of bills. Approve the budget transfers. Approve the board secretary's report and approve the cash summary report. Make it a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Meg and Dave. Any discussion? Okay, Mike?
Mr. Seidel,
Yes, abstain on I.
Vice President Hoagland,
Yes.
Mr. Bedford,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Hollingworth,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
President Crooked.
Yes. Okay, approval of following minutes from September through October. We've had a marathon of board meetings in the past couple weeks, so.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Mike?
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Vice President Hoagland,
Yes.
Mr. Bedford,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Hollingworth,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
President Crooked.
Yes. Okay, we now can open the floor for public comments for non-agenda items. Anyone? Okay, items for future consideration by the board.
I have one. I wasn't, you sit here and say, should I say anything? Should I say anything? And you say, okay, yeah, I'll say something. So I love the expression from the little acorn, the mighty oak grows. And tonight we had presentations from all the grade levels of art, music, theater. And I couldn't help but notice that 81% of the elementary singers were girls. What are we doing to make sure that the boys of the district are also brought along in the art path and not just the sports path? Let's put it out. And I was sitting on my hands and I figured I should say it.
Anyone else have anything to add?
I just want to add something quickly. When Chuck was talking about the decision to close that third grade classroom and, as we are all parents, it wasn't lost on us about the impact it had on Halloween. But I can, and she's going to kill me for this, but I have to give Ms. Simkus a kudos because we were talking on the phone and it was getting kind of late. It's been a long day. And we're talking through what can we do for the classes that we're closing. And Ms. Simkus didn't follow my advice because my advice was stop working now. It's been a long day. Wake up fresh tomorrow. We'll revisit in the morning. So I hung up the phone and Ms. Simkus then proceeded to call her PTA, call her teachers, developed a plan, came up with a beautifully written letter and alternate plans just for those two classes to provide them with something extra. And I would love to say that that's an anomaly of what our principals do, but that is what our principals do. So Ms. Simkus, thank you very much. I just want to let you know how much we appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, I'm making a motion to close the public meeting and public portion of the meeting and to go into executive session to discuss the real estate transaction. All right, so.
Jamie, do you want breakfast?